Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty charged argument made by the Louder with Crowder channel. They put out a video claiming to document 50 years of failed climate predictions. Our job here isn't to agree or disagree, but to really break down their claims and understand the specific case they're making.
So the video we're looking at kicks off by pointing out something we've all probably noticed. For decades now, there's been this constant drumbeat of really dire warnings about the future of our planet.
But why start there? Well, according to the source, it's to set up their main argument right from the get-go. They claim these predictions aren't just about science, they're actually a political tool designed specifically to create fear.
All right, to really get what they're saying, we're going to follow their argument step by step. We'll start with their whole idea about fear. Then we'll look at the historical predictions they use as evidence and see how it all comes together in their conclusion.
Okay, so let's dig into the absolute foundation of their argument. The source basically asks, what's the real reason we keep hearing all these terrifying predictions about the climate?
And this right here is the lens they want you to see everything through. They define fear-mongering as more than just scary headlines. To them, it's a calculated political strategy used to push for very specific policies and ultimately to gain control over the public.
Okay, so that's the theory. Now let's get into the evidence the video actually presents to back this all up. And they go way back, starting in the 1940s.
The very first category of predictions that the source pulls up is all about warnings that we were, about to run out of pretty much everything essential.
Now, this slide is a perfect example of the source's whole method here. On one side, you have these really dramatic predictions about peak oil or a massive global famine. And on the other side, you've got what they present as the complete opposite result, like the US actually becoming a net exporter of oil. The message they want you to get is pretty clear. The experts got it wrong.
Now, this is where the video throws a major curveball. After talking about running out of resources, it jumps to the 1970s and highlights a bunch of predictions that warned of the literal opposite of global warming, a brand new ice age.
And the source really hammers this point home. This wasn't some fringe idea from a handful of scientists. By showing quotes from huge publications like The Washington Post, Time, and The Guardian, they're trying to establish that the coming ice age was a mainstream, widely accepted idea back then. And boom, there it is. This slide is really the core of their technique, right? It puts one dramatic prediction, a new ice age by the year 2000, right up against what they present as the contradictory reality, that the year 2000 was actually one of the warmest on record. That contrast is everything to their argument. So, from global cooling, the source then jumps forward to the late 1980s and shifts focus again, this time to another huge category of climate predictions, catastrophic sea level rise.
Here, the video gets really specific. It points to high-profile places like the Maldives and Lower Manhattan. It'll show you the original deadline for when they were supposed to be underwater, point out that the date has passed, and then highlight how a new, much later deadline was quietly put in its place. The whole implication is that the goalposts just keep moving.
The timeline then rolls into our century, the 21st century, and the source turns its attention to some of the most famous predictions out there, particularly ones made by former Vice President Al Gore.
So, you see what they're doing here, right? The point they're making is all about a pattern. They highlight Al Gore's 2013 deadline for an ice-free Arctic, then show data that, according to them, shows an increase in ice that year, followed by a brand new prediction for 2035. They do the exact same thing with the claim about snow.
So all these historical examples, they're not just a random list. They're all building towards a central theme the video comes back to again and again, this supposed cycle of failed predictions that just get quietly revised. According to the source, this isn't just about a few mistakes. They present it as a consistent, three-step playbook that's been running for decades. Step 1. Make a terrifying prediction with a hard deadline. Step 2. Wait for that deadline to pass. And Step 3. Just change the prediction and set a new date further in the future.
Okay, so how does this whole history of supposedly failed predictions connect to today's climate debate? Well, the source uses it to go after a really big target, the idea of scientific consensus.
Now, the video knows exactly what you're probably thinking. Okay, but what about the 97% consensus among scientists? They anticipate that question and tackle it head-on.
And their take on it is, it's pretty blunt. They don't just question the idea of consensus, they tell their audience to just dismiss it completely. To justify that dismissal, the source draws this really interesting parallel to the past. They claim that the exact same argument that appealed to consensus was used back in the 70s to push the idea of a coming ice age. The point they're trying to make is that consensus isn't a fact, it's just a tactic used to shut down any debate.
So, after walking us through this whole timeline of predictions and patterns, what is the final takeaway? What does the source want you, the viewer, to walk away thinking?
To build their case, the sources presented this whole range of what they call failed predictions. We're talking everything from peak oil and global cooling to drowning cities and vanishing ice, all to establish what they argue is a clear, undeniable pattern of getting it wrong.
And in the end, the video doesn't actually give you a final, neat answer. It just leaves you with this one big question. If past predictions were, as they argue, repeatedly made, missed, and then just revised, how are we supposed to treat the warnings we're hearing right now?